Hi, this is Guy Gilchrist, Jim Henson's cartoonist, and you are watching and having fun with Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy here with us today. I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh. We need to as always, co-host Chris Bixby and Matt Bingel. How you guys doing?
Good,
Doing
good.
good.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. And how are you doing, Jake?
I'm doing great as always. Thank you for asking. And Matt, what do we have for today?
Our special guest today is the creator of the animated series My Life as a Teenage Robot. He's also worked on Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory, and Powerpuff Girls. He's been in animation for more than 20 years. Actually, I'd say about 25 now, I think, something like that. But he's done a lot of amazing work in animation, which we'll get into. Here he is, Mr. Rob Renzetti. How you doing, Rob? Welcome. Happy to have
I'm
you
doing
here.
good, Matt. How are you? How's everybody? Hi,
Doing
Chris. Hi,
good.
Jake.
I'm doing fantastic.
Doing
Good to
good,
see you
thank you.
guys.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Happy to have
Thanks
you
for
on.
talking with me.
Absolutely.
Yes, of course.
Definitely.
Of course, of course. So to kick this off, we know who you are, but for those who don't, would you care to introduce yourself a little bit, what you do?
Sure. Oh boy, that could go on for a while, but I'll try and be succinct. So I'm Rob Renzetti. As was previously stated, I work in animation. I had a show, My Life as a Teenage Robot, fan created T-shirt I'm wearing right now. I come from the suburbs of Illinois originally. I moved out to California to go to Cal Arts. I was lucky enough to get a job at the legendary Hanna-Barbera Studios in Los Angeles not too long after I graduated. I worked on a show called Two Stupid Dogs, which was the first thing I ever worked on. As mentioned, Dexter's Laboratory kind of came quickly after that. I did a short at Hanna-Barbera called Mina and the Count. I moved over to Nickelodeon to do 5 more of those shorts with those characters, among other things. Eventually, I did the pilot for Teenage Robot, which was the idea of mine that went to series, and that ran in the early 2000s. And after that, I moved back to what was now Cartoon Network. Had been previously Hanna-Barbera. And I worked on Tail End of Powerpuff. I worked on I guess I'm getting my things out of order, but anyways, I've worked on a bunch of other stuff. Samurai Jack, Powerpuff briefly. I worked on Gravity Falls. I worked on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, the one that was headed up by Lauren Faust. I worked on Big City Greens. Most recently, I worked on Kid Cosmic with my friend Craig McCracken again. He created that show, and I was his second in command over at Netflix. And then in those last years, I was also writing on the side, and I've written 4 books with Disney characters, including 2 spin-off from Gravity Falls. And now I've got a plug, The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things. This is my new book. It's out now, I think, when this thing will be on the air. So I've been writing on the side, and now I've written my first original kind of horror fantasy book. It's geared towards middle graders, but it's good for kids of all ages. So that is out now. And that's kind of in a nutshell my career. On the side, I've been married for a very long time. I have a pet rabbit named Digby Flopwell. There's not much more to tell about my personal life right now. Mostly stick close to home and play with my rabbit. I occasionally go out hiking. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
Nice. So I'm kind of curious. So how did you get into animation?
By sheer luck, honestly. The timing of my career kind of coincided with the rebirth of the industry, which had been on a real downward spiral. Kind of when I kind of shorthanded, but before I went to Cal Arts, I went to a place called University of Illinois, which is downstate from where I grew up. And I was there I wanted to get into the graphic design program. I didn't get into that. I got into the art history program. And this was in the mid mid 80s, and right then at that point, like, it didn't even look like Disney was going to be doing animated features. But while I was there, Roger Rabbit came out, the Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the original feature, and that kind of gave the industry some juice. And by the time I was ready to graduate, I knew I didn't really want to do what I'd gone to school for. And I found out there just coincidentally happened to be an article in the Chicago Tribune about CalArts. I knew vaguely that Walt Disney had started an animation school, which isn't really accurate. He like changed what was Chouinard, which was an art school, and he like invested a bunch of money, they helped move the school, and it became California Institute of the Arts, and he started the animation program there to train people for hopefully to come out and work at Disney. But I found out about that when I was like a senior in college, or between my junior and senior year. And then also coincidentally, someone from my high school had gone there directly out of high school. And so there was someone in my high school that had been to CalArts, and I talked to him and quizzed him about it, and got all the information about it. And eventually, after a roller coaster ride of not getting in, then getting in, I eventually moved out there and went to school there for 2 years, and then got hired to do animation because of the connections I had through going to the animation program at CalArts, which was not unusual. CalArts fed a lot of people into the industry. So that's kind of how I clued into it. I knew when I was very, very young, I always wanted to be an animator. I grew up watching Warner Brothers cartoons and the old Fleischer cartoons, of the Popeye cartoons, and the other characters. Tons of Hanna-Barbera was on TV. So I saw that stuff, and I was very inspired by it, and I drew through my whole childhood. But by the time I was a teen and thinking about what I was going to do with my life, coming out of high school, going to college, like, things were just dead. So luckily, I delayed long enough that I was able to participate kind of in the rebirth of the industry in the late 80s, early 90s.
Nice.
Yes,
Awesome.
It was very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who are some of your biggest animation influences?
I mean, there's a couple. For my childhood, I was really, really keyed into the Fleischer cartoons, and especially the Popeye cartoons. They showed 5 days a week on a local television station. I loved the humor. I loved the kind of fantastic animation style of them, how whimsical they were, and how disconnected from reality they were, as opposed to the Disney shorts, which were, like, trying to mimic the way things were in real life. The Fleischers really didn't want anything to do with that. They did just all this crazy fantasy stuff, and I really loved that. And I just loved the character of Popeye. So that was a huge childhood influence, were those shorts. And also, I have to say, the Hanna-Barbera stuff, like that's kind of limited designy style. I really liked the way that looked, and really admired that. And when I was at CalArts, I was exposed to the kind of more sophisticated first generation of that, which was the UPA shorts, Gerald McBoing Boing, Rudy Toot Toot, all those kind of shorts that they did in the mid 50s, which kind of, again, departed from what was kind of the more photorealistic, like, let's make things look like they move in real life, more into a more stylized, both design sense and a more stylized movement, with Bobo Cannon and other directors there at UPA. That was a huge influence on me coming out of CalArts, and that was kind of the group that I was with, Craig McCracken and Gendy. We all kind of clued into that same style and pursued that in the shows we did, first with Two Stupid Dogs, and then Dexter and Powerpuff, and all the stuff that I did for myself. Mina and the Count was hugely influenced by the UPA style. It was a huge influence on me.
Nice.
Now, one of your earliest jobs was on the show Two Stupid Dogs, working as a writer, director, and storyboard artist. What was it like getting to work on that show?
I mean, it was a huge relief. It was a huge relief. To step back just a bit, it wasn't my actual first animation job, though it was the first animation job I had in Los Angeles. When I came out of CalArts, actually, there was a guy there named Sergio Pablos, who was from Madrid, Spain, and he had worked at a animation studio in Madrid during the summer between our first and second year, and he was going to go back there after our second year and work there again. And that studio actually had gotten a contract to do a few episodes of the original Batman the Animated Series. So when I came out of school, I had two possible jobs. One was that he said, like, they're looking for animators. If you guys want to come over, I can get you a job working on Batman in Spain. The other one was there was a movie called Page Master that was starting up at Turner Features at the time. And they wanted to hire a bunch of people to come in as like trainees and work on that. So they needed a bunch of warm bodies. And I had an offer to do that as well. I could have become an assistant, basically at the very bottom of the totem pole, like cleanup, maybe cleaning up other people's animation drawings in Los Angeles, or I could become like an animator right away in Spain, working on Batman, who's I was a huge Batman fan, as most people are and were.
Definitely.
So I decided I'm going to go to Spain and work on Batman. And what I found out was that I was not ready to be an animator. I should have been an assistant for a very long time. Like, I could not animate those characters. And it was a pretty miserable work experience, to be quite honest. Spain was great. I loved being over in Spain. That was fantastic. It was the year of the Barcelona Olympics, so I got to go to see the Barcelona Olympics one weekend. I wouldn't change the experience for the world. It worked out great for me in the end, but the work experience was really horrible. But after that horrible work experience, I came back. I was basically you'd call it couch surfing, where you stay on friends' couches, except it was just one friend's couch. I was on one friend's couch for like a couple of months out in Los Angeles, looking to try and get a job. So when we finally got hired, because of Craig and Gendy and I all got hired at Two Stupid Dogs basically in the same couple of days. That was a huge relief. Like, I had a job. We all moved into our own apartment together and we could get off our friend's couch. So it was a huge relief, and it was a huge opportunity because they were, again, I was doing stuff that was creative rather than being an assistant on a feature. I was a storyboard artist on a cartoon show, which meant I was doing my own drawings. I was writing my own gags. Donovan Cook, who created Two Stupid Dogs, gave us a ton of freedom to come up with stuff. We would pitch to each other, and we would add gags to each other's cartoons. It was kind of the proto experience which we would implement on Dexter when Gendy got his show and we were all working on it together, where we were basically a collaborative, coming up with ideas together, pitching them to each other, and seeing what worked, seeing what was funny. So it was a great experience, and I owe Donovan if anybody I owe my career to, it's Donovan for hiring me and giving me that chance. It was tons of fun.
Definitely. And you also worked on a number of other Cartoon Network shows, including some that you mentioned, Dexter's Laboratory and the Powerpuff Girls. What was it like working on those?
I mean, Dexter was basically my crew of people. Gendy and I had been roommates at Call Arts for 2 years. We moved in with Craig McCracken. So these were my best buddies, and we were just basically doing a show together. And Paul Rudish was our close friend as well. So it was just like it was kind of like doing a student film, except you had together, except you had to do it, several of them every week on a very tight schedule. So the pressure was not fun, but collaborating with those guys, it was a dream come true. Like, none of us had dreamed when we were in college, none of us had dreamed that we would all have our own shows. We didn't even dream one of us would ever get our own show. So when they picked up Dexter, we were just thrilled. There was a moment I remember, Gendy and I were both there on the weekend working, and there was this main lobby at Hanna-Barbera, and they had a television, and the television was just tuned to Cartoon Network 24/7, and it ran on the weekend too. They didn't turn it off during the weekend. And we actually were in the lobby, and we watched Dexter come on TV, and we saw both. It was an episode that I boarded, and obviously it was Gendy's show, so we saw both our names on the TV screen, and we were just both like, this is what we dreamed of when we were in Chicago together, and now it was actually happening just a few years later. So it was really mind-blowing and thrilling. It was great.
Definitely.
Awesome. So you're best known for creating Nicktoon, My Life as a Teenage Robot. How did the idea for that show, kind of like come about for you?
It came about out of desperation, in that I mentioned Me in an Account. I did one episode of Me in an Account at Hanna-Barbera, and I was desperate for that to be my show. It had been a student film for me, like Dexter had been a student film for Craig, and how Powerpuff had been a student film. I mean, Dexter for Gendy, Craig had done Powerpuff as a student film, Mina had been my student film, so I wanted that to be my show. So I did that one pilot, and it had a long roller coaster ride, which I've talked about in other podcasts. But suffice it to say, it had several opportunities to become a show. It never did. The last opportunity was at Nickelodeon. Fred Seibert, who had been the president of Hanna-Barbera, moved over to Nickelodeon and said, "I want you to bring over Mina. I want Mina to be a show." So that was music in my ears. That's why I left Hanna-Barbera to move to Nickelodeon, for the chance to do Mina as a show itself. So I did 5 more pilots of Mina. I was supposed to do 6. Nickelodeon did not like the idea. They were creeped out about the idea of a vampire and a little girl being best friends, though, because vampires have this sexual mystique to them.
Right.
There was none of that in any of if you've seen the shorts, there's none of that in any of the shorts. There's not even a hint of that in the shorts. That was never my intention. It was always meant to be an innocent relationship. That was the joke, was that this vampire who basically likes to sleep around with girls by biting them, girls of age, would never touch an underage girl in that way. So it was always meant to be innocent, but Nickelodeon could not see it that way. So they canceled the last Mina short. And so there was an open slot. And I thought Fred was going to give it away to somebody else, like that I'd failed. And he legitimately was going to give it to either Butch Hartman to do another Fairly Odd Parents pilot, which he was working on time, or Larry Huber, who was working on the shorts for Chalk Zone, which became his series. But instead, Fred said, "I want you to come up with a different idea. It's your slot. If you have got another idea you want to do it." And so I had a few different ideas. One was about a teenage girl who has a robot for a boyfriend. And I pitched that to Fred, and Fred said, "I don't think you want to do another idea with a girl in a relationship with another non-human creature." They didn't like me, and don't go down the same path again. I'm like, "Oh, you're probably right." And I was just driving to the grocery store after having that meeting with him, not immediately, but in the days that came afterwards. And the idea, the thought in my head was just like, what if the teenage girl was the robot? And just with that thought, that idea, the idea for the pilot, I basically had it within minutes. And I pulled over to the side of the road and I wrote it all down on the back of my grocery list, I think. And I had the pilot for the show. So I came up with the idea out of I was in a corner, and I had an idea that he didn't like, but I just tweaked it in that little way. And sometimes the best ideas are like that. They just kind of they come to you out of wherever they come from, the ether or whatever. If you believe in God, from God or the muses or whatever, it just kind of came to me all at once, and I had it. And it was just a pilot for a while, but I could see the series potential in it, and eventually Nickelodeon saw it as well.
Nice. Definitely. So did you know that My Life as a Teenage Robot will become such an iconic show and still is to this day?
No. No, I mean, it was basically a failure. I mean, to be blunt, it only got 3 seasons. It did not go on for 20, 30 years like SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents or anything like that. It was just kind of we were proud of it, and we were happy when we were doing it. But it did not have the ratings at the time that it needed to have to survive. So the fact that people are still talking about it now, 20 years after its premiere, is obviously it's a joy to me, and a big surprise. I thought, most shows just kind of fade into obscurity. I mean, the internet has changed that a little bit. Like when we were doing the show in the early 2000s, this kind of internet community thing was just starting to come together. We had what we called the Teenage Row blog. We had a blog run by we all contributed to it, but our head writer kind of ran it while the show was going on. And so we didn't really have the kind of feedback between fans and artists that is so common today on all the social media at that time. But we kind of had the germ of it, the start of it. But so I didn't really see any way that it would become or stay remembered throughout all the years. But obviously, the internet, much like it's spawned so many things in our culture, it is, I think, to help fuel the fan community and allowed them to find each other and stay together. So, of course, if this is what you want, is your stuff to be remembered, but I didn't think it was going to be remembered at all. Sorry, I wish I could say I was more. I saw the future and that I saw exactly what would happen, but that would be quite dishonest. Don't buy that from anybody who tells you that.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I'm curious, are there any episodes of My Life as a Teenage Robot that stick out as some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean several. For different reasons. One is the one that's called Speak No Evil, which was kind of in the trilogy that we did. We did this episode called Ear No Evil, where Jenny discovers I don't have ears. If I want to be more like a human, I have to have ears, and she has these horrible large ears on us. And that was just meant to be a one-off. And we did the Ear No Evil as pun title, but then we got ideas for like the other two parts of that phrase. So we did a Hear No Evil and a Speak No Evil, and a See No Evil. And Speak No Evil is the one where she loses her ability to speak English and she only speaks Japanese. And that one was fun because I wasn't happy with how the first storyboard turned out. So I basically took over the storyboard and redid it all myself. And that was not normally the case. Usually, hopefully, you have a storyboard artist who gets what you're going for, and you just have to do little tweaks and stuff. But in that instance, I wasn't happy how things turned out. So I had to like basically fix it on the weekend, and I did. And I remember it's one of the few episodes I got to see with an audience because it was put into there was this film festival up in Canada that it was shown in, and I got to go. They actually brought me up to the film festival, and I got to see it with an audience. I got to see people react to the gags that I'd come up with, which was fun because that's not something you normally get with a television show. Again, back then you're not getting online responses, you're not hearing people, there's no live streaming of episodes or anything like that. It was just like do it and put it on TV and never hear from anybody ever again. So the fact that I got to see it with a live audience and got to see people react to some of the dumb gags that I thought were really dumb and were, again, out of desperation because I had to get the episode done, I came up with them, like, this is what I came up with, I got to go with it. That people liked it a lot. That was a thrill for me. So I always think of that one fondly because of the fact that those are my gags and people liked them. Another one that sticks out to me is the Return of the Raggedy Android one, because it's the most horrific episode we were able to do. And I'm a huge horror fan. Obviously, I just wrote a book that's like a horror themed book. And I did Mean and Count, which obviously is very, very lightly horror themed. It's just about movie monsters without really any horror in it. But this episode, Teenage Robot, we had to actually do some creepy, scary stuff, and that was a lot of fun to kind of change the tone of the show, and do that. The other thing that sticks out, of course, is the hour special we did called Escape from Cluster Prime, because we got to really expand things and show something we talked about for so long, this planet full of robots, which was a huge challenge for my design staff. But like, I was really proud of all the work that my crew did on that and how that all came together. And Alex Kerman, my art director, like designed a whole new title sequence, which wasn't something that we needed to do, but he ended up doing because he wanted to. I was very lucky on my show to have a hugely talented crew that was really devoted to the show and did a lot of extra for me. Many of them became good friends and are still good friends of mine to this day. We became a very tightly knit crew, and so it was a real pleasure to work with them. And the thing I mostly regretted when the show was canceled was the fact that we wouldn't continue working together, because by the time we were canceled, I thought we really had a very tight crew, and we were a well-oiled machine. It was like the well-oiled machine was moving, and then they decided to shut down the machine. So that was sad, but it was mostly, I didn't necessarily want to do it for 20 years like SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents, but I did want to do a fourth season at least. So I was hoping we get a fourth season. So when we didn't, that was a disappointment. But those are some of the highlights that come off the top of my head. So
definitely, I always liked when Nickelodeon did like hour-long specials, because I know SpongeBob did them a bunch. Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron did that whole crossover thing.
Yeah. The only other special we got to do was a Christmas special, which was fun. But I really want to do a Halloween special because I'm a huge horror fan, but we never got around to it. We got one scene of Halloween in the Christmas special, because the Christmas special covered like all the holidays in the storyline. But I would have loved to have done a Halloween special, obviously, and gotten another horror episode out of the Teenage Robot. It just, it was a superhero comedy, so like getting horror in there was a little bit difficult. except a few moments here and there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, do you have any favorite teenage robot characters?
I probably do. I don't know if I should say. That's kind of like, dissing your other children. I mean, obviously,
Right.
Jenny was a huge favorite of mine. She's the core and the center of the episode. And I've always loved working with female characters. Mina, I'm Mina and Mina account. I just especially back when I was doing it, there weren't a lot of female lead characters. And I enjoyed the contrasts in her with the fact that she had this kind of typical teenage girl personality in a body that wasn't really designed to have a typical teenage girl life. Other favorite characters, there's the main cast, of course. I love all them, but I loved Kilgore, the little toy robot who wants to take over the world. I like Vexus. I love Vexus. I love Brit and Tiff. I love the villains in the show a lot. Who else can I think of? Try to think of. I mean, I love the Raggedy Android suit, and I wanted to bring that suit back for a third episode, but we never got to do that because the third episode I came up with was really, really dark. It was like taking the horror stuff to an extreme. So I may bring the suit back if I decide I want to do that as a storyline on my website. I don't know if you guys know or not, but in order to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the premiere, I'm writing a new teenage robot story that's exclusive to the subscribers of my newsletter. That's going to premiere on August 1st, which will be the actual 20th anniversary of the show premiering. And it's just a story it's going to actually, it's going to have visuals from Alex Kerwin, the art director. He's going to do illustrations when he has a chance on some of the chapters. But I'm basically going to release a new teenage robot story on the website, chapter by chapter over the course of the next few months, depending upon how many chapters I come up with. It's already expanded, gotten longer than I thought it would be. So as I've started to write it, I won't touch on all the favorite characters, but some of the characters will be coming back for this first story, and we might bring some of them back if I come up with another story that I want to tell down the line.
Nice. Definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Definitely.
It's also, I believe the show is 20 years old.
I know.
20 years.
You're telling me I had to live all those 20 years.
Yeah.
So have Chris and I. Unfortunately,
wait, how old are you guys?
Jake,
Tell me how old are you? Reveal your
Chris and
I predate the show. I was born in 2000.
Okay,
I was also born in 2000. Barely. Jake,
and I'm born in
Jake was 2004.
You're all millennial babies. Let me tell you about the 20th century. Back then, we didn't have computer screens to connect you to anyone in the world. We had a thing called the Yellow Pages. And you needed to know the person's name before you could find them.
Yellow Pages, yeah, that's such a throwback in and of itself.
Yeah,
we still had it. We still had a Yellow Pages. We don't need more. Thank goodness.
I think the last one I got was about 3 pages long because everybody had given up on them. Sad.
I know, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh well, are there better things to be nostalgic about than a big junk book
than a big bulky phone book? Yeah,
a big bulky phone book. Yeah. Yeah. Chris and I lived those 20 years, and a lot has changed in 20 years, I'd say.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to some of your work with Cartoon Network, you've worked on the series Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yes.
It's another throwback. What was it like working on that amazing show?
It was a lot of fun. Again, it was, I'd worked with Craig, and we've been friends since school, and my career is kind of like I work with those guys, and then I go do something else, and then I come back. So I was back at Cartoon Network, and I had a chance to work with him on Foster's, and it was like the same as old times. A different group in the room, like Lauren, his wife was in there as a contributor, and we were all just coming up with ideas again. I got to write a few scripts. Again, this was kind of what I did on back when on Two Stupid Dogs second season. I had the opportunity to like write an idea, and then storyboard it, and then be involved in the directing of it. And the same was true on Foster's. I would write a script, and then a couple of those scripts I get to storyboard myself. And then my main job was the post supervisor. So I was in the room like doing editing with the editor. Basically, we get an episode back and we trim it down for time and all that kind of stuff, and working on all the post stuff. So I've been lucky in that, the thing that you do when you have your own shows, you've got your fingers and everything, right? You're not concentrating on one thing. You've got to look at the storyboards, you got to look at the writing, you got to look at the music, everything lands on your desk, which is the joy and the stress of having your own show. The joy when you're working on somebody else's show is you get to be in those things, but you're never the final arbiter about them. So like I'd edit an episode and I'd like it, but it was up to Craig if he liked all the edits I did. That burden wasn't on my shoulders, but I still had the joy of doing all that kind of creative stuff. I'd come up with an idea or write a script, and then I give it to him and he can change some of the gags or some of the story beats or whatever. Same with the board or whatever. I drew my board, and if he needed some stuff changed, he would change it. So getting to do all those various things when you're working on a show, if it's not your show, is a lot of fun because you're not stuck doing the exact same thing every day. You get a little variation. When you're a storyboard artist, which is fun, but it's very stressful. You're drawing a lot. And you're drawing this thing, and you draw, and you get to the end and you turn in your board, and it's great. And your reward is you get to start drawing another board. So, after a while burnout's real. Like, it's a hard job. So getting to draw, but then also getting to direct, like taking a break, like get to draw, then get to direct, which is a different set of skills, then go spot the music with a music guy. And spotting music is always my favorite thing because I cannot play anything. I cannot help. I can't jump in and save the music. I have to rely on somebody else to get that right. So, if a board is no good, I know I can go in and fix the board. If the writing's no good on a script I know I can fix the writing. Which is, again, fun, but also a burden because someone else is relying on you to get it right. With the music, if you don't like something, the music, you just have to tell the guy, no, that's not really what I wanted. But you can't pick up, I can't pick up a guitar. I can't pick up, any other musical instrument and fix it because I just don't have those skills. So in a way, that's the funnest thing for me because I know that it's not going to land on my shoulders. I'm just going to be able to give my thoughts and help the other person get it the way we need to have it done. And luckily, I've worked with very talented musicians over the years, and there's not a lot of things that need to be fixed. Or if they need to be fixed, they're little fixes. There's very seldom that I've seen a piece of music that we had to start over from scratch with. So I don't know. That answer went off the rails. I have a feeling I went on for too long, but anyways,
That's okay.
There you go.
We can accept long answers, so there's no worries from there.
That's okay. So on Disney, you worked on projects such as Disney's House of Mouse, and you mentioned previously Gravity Falls. Can you talk a bit about those?
I can barely talk about House of Mouse. I barely did any work on that, but it was run by two of my friends, Tony Craig and Bob Scanaway, who I met on Two Stupid Dogs. So always fun to work with them, but I barely remember doing what I did on that. I think I did a little bit of storyboard work. I don't really remember. Gravity Falls, I was, there from not quite the beginning, but almost the beginning all the way to the end. And that was fantastic. I loved it. It was the most work I did besides my own show. I was the supervising director, I think my title was, but it was basically, I was the old veteran that was there to make sure that, Alex Hirsch knew what he was doing. But Alex Hirsch knew what he was doing. He knew what he wanted to do with that series. He was very confident, very talented. He came up with a lot of the story ideas, most of the gags. I just was there to help out and contribute ideas when I could. So very similar to my experience on Foster's, I was involved in all the aspects of it. I was involved in the story meetings. I would look at the boards and give my notes on the boards. I would supervise the timing on the show. I would be an editorial helping to trim down the show when it came back. I would be there. I didn't do the music spotting, but I would, I would go to the mixes and help mix the show. So I was involved in all the other things, but again, it wasn't the final decision and the final work was on Alex's shoulders, not mine. And I love it. It was the first chance I had to do horror combined with comedy again since Mina and McCount. And since those few little instances I had on Teenage Robot. So I loved the show from the very beginning. I came in and saw the pilot and loved it and met Alex over a couple of occasions and thought we could work together, and we ended up having a great working experience. And it was a long time. I worked on that show for close to 5 years. It was we took a long time to make that show. So it was but it was fun. It was a great crew, young, talented crew. A lot of them have gone on to have their own show. Matt Brawley, Dana Terrace, both came out of that show as board artists and both had their own shows at Disney. Mike Randa was on that show first season and went off and had, did a feature film for Sony. So a lot of talent was there. Again, it was basically the next generation, similar to what we had on Two Stupid Dogs with Paul and Craig and Gendy and me all there at once. This was a bunch of young people that had been at CalArts together coming out, kind of the first one of their crew getting a show, all of them kind of working on it together. So it was a lot of fun to be involved in that group, and we had a great time, and it was a great show. I loved the stories, loved being involved in helping to come up with the stories. So it was fantastic. It was a great show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
And I should mention, I also, after that show, I worked on Big City Greens with Shane and Chris Houghton. I was involved in the first 2 seasons of that. And again, they, young creators, they wanted to have an old hand in there with them. But again, Chris and Shane knew what they were doing. It was their show. I was just there to help out. And again, I got to be involved in all the different aspects of things, help develop the characters in those early episodes, and help come up with ideas and be in the storyboard pitches and, do little sketches and do like that and supervise the timing again. And again, they were great guys to work with. And I had a great time with on that show as well.
Nice.
Awesome. So aside from animating, you've also written a number of books. Can you talk about your work as an author?
Yeah, I mean, it started off kind of at Disney when I was there working on Gravity Falls. They wanted to, I've been writing as part of my cartoon job for a while, like as a storyboard artist, all the way going back to Two Stupid Dogs. We were given an outline of an idea. We weren't given a script. So the idea would be like the Two Stupid Dogs can't figure out how to open an automatic door, and you'd get like you get some big gag suggestions and stuff. But as the board artist, you've got to come up with the bulk of the jokes, the bulk of the dialogue and stuff. So I've been writing my whole career, but not what people think of as writing. So I enjoy that part of it and humor myself thinking I'm good at it. And so I wanted to do more of that. And my kind of desire for that was kind of floating there, waiting for an opportunity. And when we were working on Gravity Falls, Disney Publishing, because the show was so popular, wanted to do spin-off books. And I kind of like made sure that my hand was, I'm like, I want to be involved in that. So when they wrote the first book they wrote was Dipper and Mabel's Guide to Mystery and Nonstop Fun. And I managed to get the opportunity to write that. And I co-wrote that with Shane Houghton, who would be in the future would be one of the creators of Big City Greens. So that was the first time Shane and I worked together. And it was a blast. It was we were writing a book, but like really we're writing like a bunch of series of gags. Like every concept was like maybe 2 or 3 pages long. So it was just a bunch of concepts kind of strung together into a book form. And it was tons of fun. And I loved working with that. So when the next opportunity came along, that was we did an actual version of Journal 3, and that was Alex and me writing that together. So that was it was kind of the same thing in that like every journal entry was only going to be like a few, you got 2 pages on zombies, right? You got 2 pages on gnomes or whatever. But what we did in that book was we kind of tried to weave a bigger story of, the story of the series and the bigger story of the author. I don't want to blow anything for people who may not have seen the show, but like the author of the journal, we kind of told his story more completely in the book than we were able to tell in the series. So that was a really a more sophisticated version of kind of doing that, kind of like we're doing a couple of gags, but we're telling a bigger story. It was a lot of fun. A lot to come up with there, because even though we did show a lot of pages in the show of the journal, there were a lot more pages we needed to come up with to create that book. And so that was huge. That was like a huge step forward for me in terms of being a writer of these things, because it wasn't just about little gags. It was about telling a bigger story.
Right.
I did 2 other books for Disney, one based on DuckTales, one for Pixar on their. I did like something to complement the Onward movie they put out right when the pandemic was hitting. But at that point, I knew I wanted to write my own original thing. So while I was working on Big City Greens with the Houghton's, I was waking up an hour early every morning and writing what turned out to be The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things, the book that's out now. That's the first thing I've written that's original. It was all my own idea. I came up with that out of my own sick head. And so that's kind of now I'm doing 3 of these books. It's not just the first one, but there's 2 more coming. It's a trilogy. I was able to pitch a trilogy and have them buy a trilogy. So I'm going to have 3 of my own original idea books out in the next year and a half. The next one comes out in January of next year, and the next one later in 2024, depending upon how quickly I can write it, which I have to do when I get off this call with you. Supposed to be writing it as we speak.
Nice. And
hold on, I'm going to type a few lines while we're talking.
and probably when this episode goes up, probably the Horrible Bag of Terrible Things might be out now. So if it is, it's going to be
Actually, yes, it will.
It is out as we record it. It will be out. I mean, as we record it, it's out tomorrow. But by the time you guys put this on the air, it will be out. So you can get it out.
Yay!
Nice.
All right,
Fantastic.
so everyone's like buy a copy from the description down below.
Right.
So
Yes, buy it. Go
to my website is robrenzetti.com. So there's links to several places to buy it there. If you want to go to my website, you could also sign up for a newsletter if you're a Teenage Robot fan and get that story too. But that's so hopefully a few people will do so.
Definitely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So speaking of the Horrible Bag of Terrible Things, how did writing that come about?
I mean, again, like I wanted to, I had this idea that I wanted to write my own original stories, but I didn't have anything really in my head ready to go. The story, there's two inspirations for the story. The first one is my chiropractor, believe it or not. The guy was before the pandemic. I haven't seen him for a while, but I was there. He knew I was in the industry, so we'd always talk about movies and animation, and he knew I wrote books as well. And I went to his office, and there was near his office there was a billboard for the latest Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie, which just started out as a book and became a movie, became a couple different movie series. I think they've done the series movies a couple different times, but at the time there was a new Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie that had just come out. And he was like, well, you write books. Why don't you write a popular smash hit like Diary of a Wimpy Kid? And I'm like thinking in my mind, like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. It didn't occur to me to write a hugely popular book that will make me millions of dollars and be spun off into movies. I'll go do that now that you've suggested it. As if it was just that easy to come up with a smash hit like you just decide to. But out of that suggestion, what came of it was like, well, why don't you get off your butt and start writing this original story that you want to write? And much like in the car the day I had the teenage robot idea kind of fall out of my head. By the time I was driving home, and I live a very short distance from where his office is, I had the first few lines of what became the Horrible Bag of Terrible Things. Like I had the first paragraph in my head for the book. So that's kind of was the negative inspiration for the book, if you want to. The positive inspiration actually comes from my wife, which is she came up with the title. So not to blow her out of the water too bad, but she's a bit of a pack rat. And we have lots of papers around the house. So when we get into a cleaning bit, we usually try and go through those papers. Like, do we need to keep this piece of paper that has this note on it? Does this note still apply? It's like a year old. And it's like, no, that note no longer applies. That can get recycled. But when we're in a hurry and we're just trying to clean the house quick, we'll like take a bunch of papers and throw them into a grocery bag or something. So we were referring to one of those old bags of notes where like it's just shoved in a corner somewhere and we don't want to deal with it. And she called it the Horrible Bag of Terrible Things because it was full of things she didn't want to have to deal with, like old notes that she didn't want to have to address. So the title actually comes from her. So was that concept that there would be a horrible bag full of something terrible. That was my wife talking about a bag full of her old notes that she didn't want to deal with. But I turned it into something a little bit more fantastic, which is there's a hidden world inside this horrible bag, and this hidden world you get transported to this world, and there's a bunch of monsters and other weird creatures that you have to deal with. And in the story of the horrible bag, for those who wouldn't know, is basically a preteen boy, Zenith Maelstrom. It lands on his doorstep from somewhere unknown. He foolishly brings it into his house. This spider-like hairball thing crawls out of it and kidnaps his older sister Apogee and drags her into the bag, and he has to follow behind to rescue her from this strange world that lies inside the bag.
Nice. Definitely looking forward to that as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Cool. I hope you guys get a chance to read it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we will definitely will.
Definitely.
So since we're about to wrap this up soon, to anyone watching or listening, what would you like to say to those who have been supporting you throughout your career?
I mean, what can I say except for thank you? If I said anything else, I'd be being very ungenerous, right? Get out of here. No, thank you very much for supporting me. And I feel very lucky and privileged to have had the career I've had, and to have the chance to entertain all the people I've entertained on the various shows I've worked on. It's of course a joy when people reach out to you and tell you how much your work has meant to them. I'm an old man, and doing social media is rough for me, but I am on Twitter quite frequently. That seems hopefully it won't collapse entirely as we go forward here, but I do enjoy interacting with fans on Twitter, so you can find me there. I'm at Rob Renzetti, and also on my website there's a contact form if anybody wants to reach out. I'm pretty good about responding to people that reach out to me. Even if it's just to say thank you, I will say you're welcome back. If anybody has questions for me, like you guys who don't have their own podcast, they can reach out to me there and ask me their questions. And hopefully when I'm not in the middle of writing the book I'm supposed to be writing right now, I'll respond if only briefly. But yeah, I mean, thank you to everyone who's supported and liked my ideas and my shows, and not only Teenage Robot but all the other stuff I've worked on. When I was a young boy in Chicago dreaming of this kind of life, I never thought I would have quite the life I've had in the industry. I've been very lucky to work on great shows with great people, and enjoyed almost every minute of it.
Definitely.
There's been a few minutes,
Yes,
a few minutes
absolutely.
I haven't enjoyed, but they're rare.
And you're welcome.
Yes, and
Yes.
your social media and your website will be in the description down below for people to connect with you.
Great, thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
So this last question that Chris is about to ask is one that we ask every guest. Go ahead, Chris.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so to end this off, so of course this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or in your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, nostalgia is basically a hazy way to look back at the past that maybe buffs out the rough patches. I'm not a big nostalgia buff. I have things from my life that I love, and I think hopefully the things that are worthwhile persist from the past, and the things that weren't worthwhile fade away. And that does not just include popular media, but old ideas that should be put on the dustbin of history. I'd say our recent years, maybe bad ideas have a way of coming back, but I think if there's enough good ideas out there and good people generating good ideas, hopefully we keep moving in a better direction. So as far as nostalgia goes, I would say I don't think you should openly embrace everything from your own childhood, because some stuff from your old childhood, not just shows, but ideas, are worth leaving behind. But I'm happy that some people seem to think that the stuff that I've done 20 years ago, when you guys were being born, is worthwhile revisiting. So yeah, I don't know. Is that a good definition of nostalgia? I guess this is everybody answers, so there's no wrong answers, right? I didn't get it wrong.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great word send
Great word send off.
Yes. All right. Well,
Right.
yes. Thanks for doing this, Rob. I'll let you know when this goes up.
Yes,
Yeah,
and thank you
please.
so much.
I'll promote it on Twitter and stuff, and let the fans know
Cool.
what it's like
Awesome.
to see.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Means a lot. And thank you so much, for what you've done and for being
Oh,
part of our
thank
lives. And
you.
thank you. Thank you for what you've
Hey,
done.
I was paid
what's
for
thanks
it.
to you
It wasn't
for
all
the great work.
charity. I did get a career out of it. So
Yeah.
thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and thanks for wanting to have me on your show.
Yeah,
Of course.
absolutely.
And
It's a
the
pleasure.
book is the copy. Just both everyone can
Yes.
have a copy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay.
Well, enjoy the
Reminder.
rest of your day, Rob.
You guys too. Thanks again.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Like,
Bye,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Rob.
Bye.
See ya. Take care.
It's goodbye from us as well, folks.
Yes,
you're absolutely
indeed.
George.
His new
Yes.
book is called The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things. It is available now. As of the time of recording, it wasn't until the following day, but you're watching it ahead. So it's available now, published by Penguin Workshop, and highly recommend you check it out. We definitely will, and we hope you will too. Links in the description below. But yes, it is goodbye from us. We have absolutely enjoyed our time with Rob Renzetti. Got a lot of wonderful stuff coming. Jake, what do we say? Take us out.
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye,
Goodbye.
everybody. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.